Let's move on to polycythemia vera. Now, polycythemia means what? Increased cells in the blood. Poly means many, cyto is cells, emia in the blood. So many cells in the blood. That's what you remember. Now, polycythemia can be primary or secondary. If it's primary, then the term you'll see is vera or rubra-vera, okay? Now, very important, with the primary type, the problem is in the bone marrow, and it's a stem cell problem. Now, because of that, you're going to have increase in all three cell lines, red cells, white cells, and platelets. Also, too, these stem cells can migrate to the spleen and proliferate, so these patients also will have splenomegaly, along with the increase in the red cells, white cells, and the platelets, okay? Now, because of the increase in the red cells, you notice here, you're going to have decrease in erythropoietin. That's very important when we compare primary versus secondary polycythemia. So that's one of the key laboratory tests to help you differentiate, okay? And like I said, they're going to have splenomegaly because of the extramedullary hematopoiesis. The bone marrow now is going to be hypercellular, so they'll show your bone marrow. You're going to have a lot of cells of very little fat, okay? So be aware of that. Increased blood viscosity, so it may be associated with thrombosis. And this is one of the few diseases associated with increase in mast cells. Okay, mast cells are called basophils in the blood. We call them mast cells in tissue. Now, this is important because one way they might classically present on the test is a patient may give a history of itching while they're in the shower or they get out of the shower. Why? The heat from the shower stimulates the mast cells to release their granules. So that's a classic presentation you may see on the step. Now, if it is secondary polycythemia, now we're talking about increase in erythropoietin. So why would you have that? Number one, if a patient moved to high altitudes, like to Denver, okay? Two, there's certain diseases, like renal cell carcinoma, that can secrete erythropoietin, like a paraneoplastic syndrome. So very important, if it's secondary polycythemia, number one, erythropoietin is going to be elevated. Two, no splenomegaly. Why? Because there are no stem cells migrating to the spleen for extramedullary hematopoiesis, and remember, EPO only causes stimulation of increase in red cells, not white cells or platelets. So you're not going to get the thrombosis and other manifestations. So very important, if it's secondary polycythemia, EPO will be increased, no splenomegaly, and only increase in red cells. That's very important, okay? Now, with your relative polycythemia, what does that mean? It's kind of like a chemistry thing. It means you actually have a normal number of cells, but the patient is hemoconcentrated secondary to dehydration, okay? So very important, if it's relative polycythemia, a normal number of cells, but patient is going to be hemoconcentrated. That's what you want to remember. And notice how the red cell mass and, very important, erythropoietin is going to be normal, okay? And that ends our chapter 12, red cell pathology.